What do you get when you keep all the violence from God of War and slap an isometric view on it? You almost get Redeemer. Hey, what's going on guys? I'm Brett Madigan, and welcome to my review of Redeemer for PC. Redeemer is an isometric beat 'em up developed by Sobaka Studio and published by Gambituous Digital Entertainment for PC. Although the game is strictly a PC release, the developer hopes to also release the game on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 at a later date. Does Redeemer hold its own, even as a bloody violent beat 'em up? Let's find out. Let's be real for a moment. Redeemer does not take itself seriously as a narrative-driven game, despite it being mentioned on the product page. More on that in a moment. I don't want to keep being that guy that bashes a game's narrative, though there are certain things about said narrative in this game that need to be mentioned. Yes, it does have plot holes, and at times the levels don't really feel like they tie in to the narrative at all. Does it really matter? In my eyes, the game's narrative is just a stepping stone. It's not the main focus of the game by any stretch of the imagination, therefore not at fault for having problems. With that said, let's dive into the narrative behind the game. Well, a brief overview before we tear it apart. You play as Vasily, previously a soldier, an elite operative of sorts. His plane crashes near a monastery, then after several years, he is now a trained monk at the Temple of the Vanishing Star. It's supposed to be unreachable to those who don't know its secret location, they say. Yeah, the plot contradicts itself already, shh. Vasily tasks himself with saving his fellow monks, because the arms company he used to work for has either kidnapped them or killed his friends, I guess? It can make sense as a revenge narrative. But once you place the monks in there and the fact that somehow you are located at a monastery that technically doesn't exist by your previous employer, the narrative starts to fall apart. With a narrative that tries to involve the player with a rescue mission or saving people, there has to be some emotional tie to them. Otherwise, why do I care or need that portion of narrative at all? To justify how the enemy found the monastery to begin with, it wouldn't be that difficult to trace the plane or just head in the general direction that the plane was heading in to begin with. It's a bit of a stretch, but somewhat believable. Just quickly though, it already sounds very The Iron Fist from Marvel. Nothing wrong with that, but potential inspiration and whatnot. As for the in-game narrative, that's all I'll mention, because there isn't a lot to go on really. There is more backstory under the glossary than there is in-game narrative. But for those that want to read it, it's there. I left Redeemer thinking, man, I wish I could play a section of the backstory. The arc for Vasily sounds intriguing. Rather than being told what happened, why not allow the player to go through the training and whatnot? That could be interesting, at least to me.
For kicks.
Before I wrap up this story section of the review, I do want to take the time to appreciate the amount of effort gone into creating these stunning comic book-like cutscenes. There may only be a few of them, but geez, are they amazing. Definitely got some Infamous or Hard Reset vibes, or potential inspiration, which is neat. The meaty bit of this review has finally commenced. Yay! Okay, let's break down the core aspects of the game. Hand-to-hand combat, melee weapons, guns, and environmental takedowns. Nothing we haven't seen before, but what can the developer add to spice things up? Gore! Redeemer, finally a game that can appreciate my love for all things gory. Gone are the days of blood decals despawning on a timer. Here are the days where blood remains. Something as simple like blood decals despawning may not be an issue for some, though it's just one of those features that really annoy me for some reason. Why does my blood disappear? It adds a sense of depth. It's a game, but the game world reacts how you'd expect, which is great. The combat focuses on three main pillars: melee, charged attacks, and environmental takedowns. The pickup weapons, I feel, are just there to keep combat interesting, or sometimes to provide an ego boost when you're in a rough situation. Melee consists of a punch, kick, single-handed weapons, and charge attacks. Weapon pickups range from a knife or a hammer to a pistol or an assault rifle. The developers did a decent job making sure the weapons weren't overpowered. All items are breakable after a certain amount of hits, whereas guns only have a limited amount of ammo. It's an interesting play on the traditional pickup system, whereby you pick up a weapon and once you run out of ammo, just pick up more and away you go. So the game has charge attacks, yet I didn't really feel the need for them. There were times during combat where I just forgot the charge attacks were even a thing. Sure, it took a little bit longer to kill the dude, but hey, it was great bashing his face in a tad longer. I'm starting to think that this game let my inner violent person out of its cage. Undecided if that's a good or bad thing, but hey, judge me all you want. There's also a whole range of weapon pickups, including knives, electrified batons, machetes, hammers, a cyborg head that electrifies on impact, and some other things. But you can also throw chairs at people, because why not? Where the combat got rather interesting was the inclusion of environmental takedowns. Granted, you couldn't use a lot of your surroundings, but hey, still super satisfying to shove an enemy into a pillar or a spike for the first time, as you can see here. If you're a player like myself that won't play anything on easy, I dare you to play this game on hard. Even the default difficulty is excruciatingly difficult. At times it's hard to tell if it's intentionally made this way, or if they didn't finish balancing. You'll see what I mean. Get in, death, repeat. Was my life for a few hours straight with some levels. Please don't make me replay the final level. That was just painful to play through. Don't know if that was by design, but man, why? Why was it designed that way? The health system in the game is new to me. Killing enemies gives you health. Why is this the case though? Is there a specific reason why this mechanic was chosen? It would be nice to have a narrative portion tied to this mechanic. Is there a specific reason why Vasily gets health from killing? It's unclear. Most games that I play are third or first person single player action adventure titles, so if I'm honest, originally I didn't think I'd enjoy this game all that much. The variety in combat helped me stay engaged and even prompted a smile when I beat a difficult level. If I could sum up Redeemer in 3 words, it's violent, gory fun. Side note for a second, the inclusion of a highlight when either the enemy or the player is out of sight was a nice touch. Makes it easier to see because the camera is fixed. Yet sometimes that mechanic wasn't working, just thought I should mention that. Now, being who I am, I can't leave this section without saying a few negatives about the gameplay. Okay, right out the gate, you'll notice that Xbox controller prompts are on your screen, even if you aren't using one. Yes, that's a minor complaint, though I feel like it's an oversight. If you designed specific mechanics around a keyboard and mouse, like the in-game cursor, then there should be a switch between control schemes, should there not? On that note, there is no option to control the sensitivity for either the mouse or gamepad, which means that mouse movements are slower than the controller? Not too sure how that works. There's a check surroundings mechanic, yet it felt a little counterproductive sometimes. If I was inside the view cone of the enemy yet using that mechanic, I still couldn't see them, so why is this mechanic here? The final issue is picking up throwable objects on keyboard and mouse was rather weird. Instead of using the mouse to point to where you wanted the object to go, it was controlled by WASD. That feels rather console oriented, so hopefully the developer could make the needed adjustments to make that feel better in an upcoming patch. When I received a press release about Redeemer, I knew I had to have it. I'm saying it again, I know, but gore is something that gets my blood pumping. In a good way, I swear. Well, the best way. No, move on. Redeemer was built using Unreal Engine 4, so without fail, the game looks stunning. In order to get something looking this amazing in a small viewport, there's a few drawbacks, such as performance. Yes, I know my system is an ancient Mayan, but hey, if there's a performance drop to half my monitor's refresh rate, I'll mention it, okay? There's several environments that result in huge performance drops. One level that comes to mind was down the Primrose Path. All I'll say is the trees are evil and need optimization, but if I was a professional, I'd say that the LEDs need adjusting for the distant foliage. I could be wrong, but that's my assumption. I don't know, man, there's just too many trees for that level. Just could be a thing. At times, it looks as if the game was over post-processed, or the profile used was set up way too aggressively. For instance, it looks like Vaseline was smudged all over my screen, but in motion, it's less noticeable. Just something to think about, Sobaka, when using Unreal Engine. The effects are pretty and all, but don't go overboard. For a moment, I just want to go back to the cutscenes. Why isn't there more instances of these? Clear answer is the developer went for gameplay over cutscenes. I mean, I didn't feel any connection to the monks by the end game, so maybe if there was a friendship bond, then I'd believe it. I'll still love those art pieces regardless though. There wouldn't be any meaty combat without satisfying hit sounds, so props for that. When in combat, the music stays mostly the same, only louder. There were a few moments where the music changes to a fast-paced hardcore rock metal song, for whatever reason, but it still fits perfectly. If I had any issues, it would be when transitioning to a new level. The music would be one thing, but if you died or restarted from checkpoint whilst the combat music was playing, it would default back to the idle or non-combat music. Minor complaint, but thought I'd mention it. Performance doesn't impact my review one bit, because even at 45 FPS, the game was still smooth. Though turning shadows down a notch brought the FPS back up to 60, so no issue there. Redeemer provides the player with satisfyingly meaty combat with gore as a feature. What more can you ask for in a game? Yes, it's not perfect, but it's a damn fun game once you push through the difficult levels. Just quietly, not sure why so many people were complaining about that. Yeah, it hit you in the teeth when you found out there was some difficulty to the game, but hell, it was still amazing. I needed more of a believable narrative. I can't take it seriously if it contradicts itself before the gameplay starts. That's why Redeemer gets a 7 out of 10 from me. I hope you enjoyed this review. My name is Brett Madigan, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Why can't I... what? Why is the UI broken? Why can't I go up? Okay.